Yes. Why do we keep buying the thing? What is it? We buy the thing, we forget we bought the thing arrives, we get the thing doesn't help, we put it away, and then we forget we have the thing. And all we've
And then
got
we
left
throw
for
it out
is
years later.
and throw it out years later, clutter to deal with. And we repeat this cycle. Why? Why do we do it?
Why do we do it?
Why do we do it? So, look, impulsive shopping is a thing that a lot of neurodivergent people struggle with. It's something I know I struggle with. I know you've struggled with it over the years. Pretty much every neurodivergent friend I have ever had struggles with it. And it's something that is hard for a lot of my clients as well. And it's only sort of when we lift off sort of the top and we look underneath actually what's happening, there's an opportunity there to kind of give ourselves a little bit of grace and sort of find out why we're doing what we're doing and have a chance to sort of break the cycle.
Yeah, it is a tricky one because having just gone through, I think, 3 trips to the op shop in the last 6 months or so, I'd probably say that that's a fair assumption that I was probably buying things as a form of escapism.
Yeah, I remember when I just had my daughter and, you know, I was getting packages delivered to my husband's work at the time because I didn't want a delivery person to wake her up when she was sleeping, because we all know that's a big thing. And the reception area actually asked him to stop because there were so many packages coming. And it's really interesting too that, yeah, you said escapism, right? But these moments in our lives when we are super stressed or there's a lot going on, we tend to shop more. And it's really interesting when you look at it, there's sort of some drivers that sit behind it. So from an ADHD perspective, we know about our relationship with dopamine. We know those levels in our brains are different and how it activates is different. And so often when we're buying something, it's a really quick and easy dopamine hit. We pay for it later.
That dopamine.
But in the moment, it's a really, really easy way of getting it. And then the other thing that happens in our brains is sort of linked a little bit to sort of the time dysphoria and the difficulties in sort of understanding the now and the future, and future me will hate you. Is that instant moment of gratification is like it's here and now. Yes, we've got that. That's amazing. But we sort of discount, the delayed discounting that happens later on is we kind of don't really take into account the bill that's going to come, or are we going to afford it, or are we going to use it? Is this something that is just going to end up another piece of clutter in the house?
Yes.
Yes. And then on top of that, just to make life even easier and more susceptible to these large corporations that tend to love our brains, is there's some difficulties around inhibition, and it's harder to sort of press pause because we work through. Sometimes working memory too, it can be hard to remember that we've already bought the thing. That's the most embarrassing thing, is when it arrives and then you go to put it in the drawer and then it's already in the drawer.
I have 2
from
of
the
these,
last time
or worse,
I bought it.
I have 4 of these.
Exactly. And sometimes as well, it's hard to prioritize, right? So instead of, just buying the one thing, we buy all the things because it can be difficult to make a decision. So, we're seeking that stimulation, we're seeking that dopamine, and then we don't necessarily have the planning or the future consequence out there to really sort of help us follow through. And then if that's not hard enough, the autistic part of the brain. Often for us, it can be this really deep monotropic focus, right? I have a problem, I have to solve it. Like the cruelest thing you can do to me as an autistic person is give me a jigsaw puzzle missing a piece, right? That should be illegal in every country in the world, right? It is horrendous. We must solve the problem. We must close the loop. Having those unanswered things and that uncertainty is really difficult. And when we've got that sort of monotropism and that narrow channel pathway thinking into a solution, it can be really, really hard to get out of it, right? So the problem is the baby's not sleeping. So instead of sort of going through what are the reasons it could be, what are the things I can control, you're exhausted, you're bone tired, the problem is the baby's not sleeping. It might just be a phase, and instead of just going, it's going to be a rough few nights, we'll work through it, it's okay. The easier thing to do, or the problem being solved, is buying all the things. So we get new sleep suits, and we get new infusers for the room, and we get different white noise machines, and we get shushes and rockers and things that hobble the pram and different weighted things and all the rest of it. We buy all the things and we throw the things at the problem when chances are it probably would have passed anyway. But in those moments, it can be really, really hard to be stuck on the solution, and fixing and solving that problem and looking at all the details and buying and doing all the things.
Yes. Yes, especially that immediacy part of my brain lights up if I know I can get it by 9 p.m. that night.
Yes.
So then I don't have to wait. Because for me, if I have to wait for something, it really has to be worth it, right?
Yeah.
And so if I can get it quickly, then I think that was actually the thing that spurned my period where I was ordering lots of things. It was, here is a problem. Here is something I need. Do I need it? No, but I didn't want to think about that. It was more of a random, off the cuff want that I perceived as a need at the time because it scratched an itch.
Yes.
And then as soon as that itch was scratched, then I didn't think about it anymore.
Yeah. And it's funny as you say that too, right? A lot of my clients, when I work with them, it's that piece of reframing it to go, this isn't reckless spending, it's rapid self-regulation, right? So it's not reckless spending, it's rapid self-regulation. So you are trying to soothe yourself and calm yourself in the means that you have available. And often as well, we do have lower levels of interoception. We can feel uncomfortable in our bodies. We can be feeling unpleasant thoughts and feelings and not really sure why, not really sure where it's coming from. We can't necessarily name it. And it can feel really overwhelming. And when we buy the thing, the feeling goes away temporarily until the guilt and the shame and all those other things come back into bias later. So I guess a helpful analogy is thinking about it is it's almost like your brain is just running out of fuel, right? And your brain's a car in this analogy or this idiom is your brain's running out of fuel and the warning light is on. You've got 5 kilometers left in the tank. You are just going to pull over to the nearest servo. It doesn't matter how much it costs. And that's the process that we go through subconsciously when we impulsively shop.
Yeah, it's very similar to when they say don't go shopping, like food shopping on an empty stomach, right?
Yes.
Because it's you're feeling hungry, thirsty, exhausted, whatever the case may be, and the first thing that you see that lights up your brain, it's like this is what I have to have immediately. And yes, and then you might go to the car or go home and binge out on all the stuff that you've eaten when in reality you could have just had a banana.
Absolutely. It's the same thing, right? And if you're struggling with this, one, you are not alone. Second of all, there are large multinational corporations employing hundreds of people to help make it easier to buy, right? To help reduce the barriers, to make it easier to get it by 9 p.m, to add it to your cart, to save the details, to make it simpler for you to get that dopamine hit, right? Because we know the shorter the loop is and that easier that process is, right? Organizational psychologists around the world, they're employed for this very purpose, and marketing people. The fewer roadblocks there are, the fewer barriers there are, the more likely they are to get your money. So it's almost like an unfair fight, right? We've also got equipment that's not necessarily the most helpful in trying to manage these impulses. And then you're up against an enemy or you're up against a force which is intentionally designed to tackle into that weakness and to make it easier for you to purchase. If you are struggling with this, a few things that you can do. First is make it harder, make it intentionally harder. So the good news about our brains and our working memory is that if we can put it aside for long enough, we'll actually forget it exists, which is, let's use that to our strengths, right? So if you do have shopping apps that you use all the time, yes, they're convenient, but delete them from your phone. Remove your credit card details. A lot of us struggle to remember credit card information, resetting a password, right? If I have to reset a password on an app, I'm never going to use it again. A lot of us struggle with that. So make it as hard as possible to delay that gratification in the meantime is probably, one of the most powerful things that you can do. The second thing is then looking at, what's that feeling and recognizing when you're in that state and finding a way where you can get the same outcome. You can get that dopamine hit. You can get what your body's craving and what your body's needing, which is regulation, through another means. So is it a sensory need that you need to attend to? Could it be something like music to lift up your mood or engaging in activity that's fun? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? All of these things. Right? Riding the wave of the feelings and sort of breathing it out, because chances are it will pass, right? The baby will sleep again. Like it's, scientifically proven babies must sleep at some point, right? So it's writing that and letting it pass. But in the meantime, finding, if you need it, supports to help make it more comfortable for you. Because if you can avoid that, 6-minute window, I think they routinely have done studies on this, and it's between 6 and 12 minutes that urges come for, and we call it urge surfing. And, if you can write out that 12 minutes, chances are you'll sort of move through it and be able to move on to something else.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what kind of advice would you have for somebody who potentially has a goal in mind, like a future goal, future saving, future trip, or something along those lines? But, they've just seen an amazing sale online and they go, oh, well, actually, I've been meaning to get one of these items previously, but then they start filling up their cart with everything because, to quote the old cliche, going broke, saving money. So
yes.
What do you do in that moment where you forget that you've got this long-term goal and you've got this short-term thing right now?
Yeah. And look, what I would say is when you recognize again where that's coming from, money for us is kind of like time. It's really tricky, particularly digital money, right? Is really, really tricky for us to make sense of. It's like time, that, as you said before, the timey-wimey, right? It's hard to process unless you physically see the time moving, unless you physically see the money moving. So the best ways you can do is setting yourself up for success before those moments, is give yourself a window every month where you can buy those things that there will always be another sale. There will always be another sale. That's the crazy thing. So pick a dedicated time every month where you are more likely to be regulated, where it's an intentional time to shop for the things on the list, and set yourself those parameters around that and doing that. And setting up your accounts in a way where you only have, the money sort of swept aside and, it's put out in buckets. It's put away so that you can't get it, easily unless you really want to. So yes, you can still get it in an emergency. There will be ways to extract it, but when it's out of sight, out of mind, I don't know about you, but if I look at my account and I go, I've only got $13 in it, I'm like, that answer, right? It doesn't matter if there's $10,000 sitting in another account. In that account in front of me, the one that I've got visibility and access to on my phone, I've only got $13 in it. So I'm not going to buy the thing.
Yeah. So like a bank account that allows you to see either some sort of visual representation or transfer money into accounts, but it can take a few days to transfer the money back out again, potentially.
Or it might be that you've only got, have money with different banks, and you've got, bank A is where you put all your savings, and you've only got that on your laptop, right? Or on your desktop computer. You don't have those apps on your phone. Right. So if you want to get the money out, you actually physically have to call the bank, wait on the line, transfer it across, or you have to physically get to your computer to do that. Right. And then on your phone, because that's where most of us do our damage, is you've only got the app with the transaction banking account in it with the smaller level. So whatever that can be to structure that. And there are, financial counselors that specialize in this sort of stuff, and making it easier to save and structure your money in a way that works for you. But yeah, it's trying to introduce barriers to access the money is the best way, because in that moment, it's going to be really hard to switch ourselves off. Even if we recognize that we're in it, it is really, really hard, because we are like hungry dogs sniffing out a bone, right? I need that dopamine. I can see the dopamine. It's only 3 clicks away. I get that dopamine. I want that dopamine, right? It's really, really hard to pull yourself out of that state. So the best thing you can do is reduce the number of chances of finding yourself in that state. And if you find yourself in that state, it is going to happen. You are going to slip up. It's not possible to not buy useless stuff in the world in which we live with the neurodivergent brain. Give yourself grace for it. And if you can, also have an easy system set up for returns. So sometimes I will get boxes delivered and I can't remember what's in the box. And if I can't remember what's in the box, I go straight to the post office with the box, go into my Amazon orders and say, this was delivered today, print the return label and do the return right there and then. Because it's like, if I can't remember what's in the box, it probably wasn't that important in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great one. For me, returns, I think, tend to amount to torture.
Yep. Even if it's
So-
driving the box to the op shop.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Just getting rid of it.
Exactly. Or I put it in the present cupboard.
Yes. With a note on it for who it's for and for what thing later. But yeah, it's the best thing we can do around this one is because it is so complex and there are such big systems that are out there to set us up to fail in this, right? It is not a fair fight. So the best way is to try and opt out of the fight as much as possible.
Yeah, I love that. I think that probably takes us to the end of where we can go with this episode. So if you have any experience you want to share about your impulsive shopping or any tips and tricks for anybody else about the barriers that you've put in place, whether it's putting stuff in your cart and giving yourself 24 hours to come back to it or some other ingenious way, please let us know in the comments. And if you have liked what you've heard today, please like and subscribe.
Yep.
Until then,
and stay spicy and don't buy the thing.
Stay spicy.
You're listening to the Neurospice Life podcast
with Hannah and Freya, besties, brains, and more.
If you've enjoyed listening, follow us on YouTube or your favourite podcast app and share it with someone else who knows the sting of a sticky label.
We'll see you next time. Until then, stay spicy, stay wonderful.